Sports conversation the way it ought to be. This is Jeff Allen Sportstalk.
All right, it was becoming a tradition following March Madness, where we recap everything about college basketball, UCF, and more. My pleasure to bring back to the show once again from ESPN and CBS Sports and former UCF star Mike O'Donnell. Mike, thanks for being here once again.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk about the Knights and the season that just concluded. So I guess the best way to put it, I guess, is what is the state of UCF basketball right now? And of course, we're seeing a lot in UCF ain't the only school where the porteth taketh and the porter giveth.
Right.
Lots of flux again this year. What do you think the state of UCF basketball is at this particular juncture?
I mean, the same state that 99% of programs are in, and I'm not giving you a lazy answer. I mean, it is a victim of complete and total chaos. But you are going to the postseason, right, every single year. I don't think anybody thought that UCF would come close to finishing in the middle of the pack in the first two seasons in the Big 12. I think that's a big deal. I understand there's just like natural, you want your fan base to have high expectations for your team, and you want to go to the tournament. You want to compete at the top of the Big 12. I've tried to talk to fans about, like, I know everybody's really excited about when they first got in for like Big 12 football. I get it, and football is king, and I will never. I understand that completely. But Big 12 basketball is like a religion for a majority of the schools in the conferences. Big 12 basketball is like SEC football. And so you're stepping into in the last 10 years of college basketball, it is the best conference in college basketball. And it just got better by the additions that happened in the last 2 years. I think the turnover is frustrating. I get it. I think Coach Dawkins would say, it's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable for any coach. It's not enjoyable for Bruce Pearl. It's not enjoyable for Johnny Dawkins. But, he's going to say what he should say, and he is a guy who believes in what he says. Like, we still have to find a way. Right, you got to find a way to be competitive, but the way that Dawkins creates, I think it's really interesting this year that essentially both years, your preseason expectations, not from UCF's perspective, from the outside, like I don't know how this is going to work. Right, 2 years ago you essentially picked last, and this past year I can't remember. Jeff, what they were picked preseason this season?
I want to say just below the middle of the pack. Yeah,
probably below the middle of the pack, and it really is. I think that things could have gone sideways really quickly with any other coach entering into the Big 12. It's a gargantuan leap. And I think that there's going to be frustration naturally from any fan base. But, man, Keyshawn Hall nobody knew who Keyshawn Hall was. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew who he was. Then he gets in the UCF system and goes absolutely nuts. And he's a Big 12 All-Conference member. There's a lot of credit that goes to Keyshawn Hall for that, but that's not an accident. It's not. So I think his player development is a real thing. I don't know what happened with Jalen Sellers. I think a lot of things would have been different if Jalen Sellers would have played.
Yeah.
A lot would have been different. Like you're talking about, a top 10 player. You would have essentially had 3 top 15, top 20 players in the Big 12 on that roster if Jalen Sellers was healthy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what happened there. But I think it was really disappointing. I wish he would have played.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have definitely had some big impact there. So, given that, Johnny Dawkins brings us into the Big 12, and and they exceed expectations by most accounts. February was a tough sled for them. I think they had built up a lot of momentum. So there's the plus and minus of things, right? You go into the gauntlet of the Big 12, and you know how
Right.
difficult that is, but also UCF had a lot of quad one opportunities,
Yeah.
which that didn't exist in the American,
Right.
but virtually every night is a quad one opportunity in the Big 12.
That's right. That's right. But it works in reverse too, right? Anytime you play at UCF, it's gonna essentially be a quad one opportunity. It's just so cool. Like if I'm not deflecting here, Jeff, like I really think that my hope is that over the course of time that the narrative gets louder and louder and louder of, I mean, you got Kansas. You can make an argument that Kansas is the most storied program in the history of college basketball, right? But next, right? It's Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke. Like that's it's every season they're coming in to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Top of the food chain right now, and they're not even the top of the food chain of the Big 12. It's Houston. I mean, even like how cool is it when a school like Oklahoma State is consistently coming into play?
Mm-hmm.
How cool is that? BYU. That BYU game was insane
Yes,
when they came and played, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were too many BYU fans in the stands for if you were a UCF fan. The narrative has to grow, I think, to where it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal that you can't miss a game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. It's so epically cool that all these programs, every single season, Iowa State are going to come, Arizona are going to come in to the UCF arena every single year.
Mm-hmm.
You have to absolutely just soak it in for a second. And I will say this about the season, and man, I thought the student section was incredible.
Yeah.
All season long. I thought the nightmare at the student section was just so good. Packed essentially every game, loud. The Palm Fronds bring I've been on record saying I think it's the most underappreciated student section in the country because of the uniqueness. Like, it can get loud, and that's great, and it needs to be. But on TV, when you watch a game on TV, like, you're shooting into palm fronds. That doesn't happen anywhere in college basketball. And I said, I would be like, I want more fronds in there. Like, I would want, like, it just is so unique, and it's so different, and it's so cool. There needs to be a landscaping company that sponsors the student section that provides the palm fronds every single game, right? Every time they do landscaping, save the palm fronds and then donate them to the student section.
It's a great idea. So besides the fact the schedule is hard, you're also talking about money, and the Big 12 spent the most no money in college basketball, right? What will it take for UCF to be able to invest more into that? Because that's basically going in with one hand behind your back against the rest of the league.
Well, yes. So the short answer is time.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear that, but that is the truth. And UCF has been doing things with an arm behind their back since the inception of the university.
Yeah, true.
And I would say, I don't know if there's a more in terms of all of the schools in power conferences, there isn't more of a blue collar find a way institution than UCF. I mean, even from like that the Bethune-Cookman UCF football game, like all the way back, like every single year, you are the underdog when it comes to any budget conversation. Every single year. Jeff, like we made a big turn my first year at UCF. We made a big turn going from Atlantic Sun to Conference USA. It's a big jump. At that time, it doesn't sound like it now. That's a big jump. And I, had holes in my socks because there wasn't enough. We didn't have enough Adidas socks. I played with holes in my socks. It's every single year. It's every single program. It's every 1 year, every 5 years, every 10 years. I mean, UCF is just now getting grandfathers and putting their grandkids in, UCF onesies. That is just now happening. UCF is 100 years behind schedule. But they still made it. UCF still made it. You're still at the table. So I say all that to say that you don't have a choice to be creative with your roster. I think if you try to build a roster like everybody else is building a roster, I think you get behind the eight ball. And I'm not saying anything profound here. Like, if the answer was just money, I would say, yep, that's it. But, Florida just won the national championship, and they did not have the highest payroll in the SEC. And they didn't get guys for $2 million, $2.5 million, $3 million. They didn't. They didn't. Houston does not have, a huge NIL budget. Like when you're comparatively to like Kansas or Iowa State or something like that. I mean, it can be done. It has to be done, and you have to get creative with the roster. It's the only way. I think you'll see more and more creativity with rosters and how they take shape. And I think, when the House settlement happens, that'll help. I mean, a little bit. I mean, less than 10%. Like, it'll help just even some things out. But, UCF does things the right way, and especially Johnny Dawkins does things the right way. So he's not going to go behind anybody's back and do anything. He's a very upfront, honest man. And I greatly respect that. And, Congress, I cannot believe I'm saying this, like Congress has to get involved and be a part of giving some type of rule-based authority to the NCAA to where you can just enforce something. So it's a huge conversation, Jeff. We could probably spend like 6 hours talking about NIL and NCAA stuff. But the two answers to give are time, which nobody wants to hear. I understand that, and creativity. And that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. Well, it's lots of interesting things that take place in that. And of course, money also was kind of a factor in the brand new college basketball crown tournament, which UCF got to participate and made a terrific run in that tournament. I guess playing for scratch does help motivate a little bit there, especially when it's right there in front of you.
They played great. Definitely shorthanded. I don't know if I can. I mean, they were definitely shorthanded. I don't know if I can actually adequately explain how good they were because I unfortunately did not get a chance to watch them as much as I wanted to. But I do know, going back and watching some of the film, that offense was what I think the offense was supposed to look like for the majority of the season. And I thought they played very unselfish. I thought the ball didn't stick. I think with some guys on the roster during the regular season, the ball would stick, and there was an enormous amount of isolation. UCF analytically was by far and away the heaviest ISO scoring team in the Big 12, one of the top in the country actually, and they didn't play like that in the Crown. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they played really well. Darius was phenomenal, and the ball was moving, and the ball was moving. The ball had energy. The spacing was awesome. The connectivity was there, and you can't say woulda, coulda, shoulda. But that's what the offense was supposed to look like during the regular season. We saw glimpses of that in like the first 10 games of the season, this past season. But I thought that the offense was just a joy to watch. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And, it was also interesting because, there were players that had moved into the portal, but they did play. Bukowski obviously being one of those. And he really showed with the extra minutes a lot of his potential. I guess he's going to Wofford now. So I think he was able to, and that looks like a very good program for him to be in too, because of his 3-point shooting ability.
Yeah, I think he'll fit really well in that system. In that conference, I think he'll thrive. I thought he was going to be the true backup point guard this season. The way that he was playing during the summer, I mean, he was like the best player on the floor in multiple scrimmages that I saw, like far and away, and just couldn't quite find his rhythm and put it together during the season. But I do think that it'll be Wofford will be a really good fit for him.
Yeah, and in like you said, woulda, shoulda, but if DJ doesn't tweak the hammy,
100%.
That's a whole different ball game, and he certainly he gave everything he had, and then some, and what a truly inspirational player he was this season, because he had a senior season that really just got better and better as it went on.
Yeah, what a way to end it. He's going to look back at that and, probably he's definitely going to look back on that and be really frustrated with the fact that they lost, because that's the kind of competitor that he is. But what a tremendous amount of grit. We don't get a lot of grit in college basketball like that. And I love that. We need more of that. I miss that in the game. Fighting through. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured, and we have combined the two in college basketball recently, and I'm not a huge fan. And boy, I was just so proud to know Darius and watch that. Jeff, a pulled hammy in the middle of the game. It's rough. It is. There is nothing you can do about it, and that was the championship game. And I would have done the same thing. You do whatever you can, and your brain just a lot of times just says no, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. But he still fought through it like crazy, and that's what I hope UCF basketball will forever be known as. I think we had a lot of years of that. The kind of blue collar toughness going to show up with, I'm going to, staple my arm together and we're going to go out there. Right. And that was a very impressive display of heart and grit from Darius. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he surpassed a couple of my records actually this season too. Which I was really happy. I had no idea until people told me, and I was like, that's awesome. I was really happy for him. Yeah. Really happy. Well deserved.
Absolutely. And I guess the only other thing we would probably want to see maybe out of UCF next season, it just seemed like the defense that has been the long trademark of, or just, basically taking teams into a phone booth for a fight. They had their difficulties this year, especially down low. other than Sham. So hopefully next season we get more of that more trademark defense that we become accustomed to.
We'll see. Yeah, the offensive system that they were trying to incorporate this past season, what we saw in the first kind of 8 to 10 games of the season was like they wanted to press, they wanted to run, they wanted to score in the first 10 seconds. We saw that, and it worked against Texas A&M. It worked early against some very good mid-major teams, and you were starting to see how impressive it could be. And then they got away from that, and subsequently there was if shots weren't falling for some guys, there was a direct attribution to a missing of defensive assignments, because the defensive system was different than the previous seasons under Coach Dawkins, just drastically different, because it had to be. You can't play that pack line Johnny Dawkins, you get nothing, easy half court defense, and then get out and want to score in the first 10 seconds of the shot clock. The way the spacing and the rhythm is set up, it doesn't work. So it will, if they keep the same offensive system. It worked in the Crown. You saw how fast they played in the Crown, how well they scored, and defensively it worked too. You can have both, but that defensive system in the Crown was not the same defensive system in the previous seasons under Coach Dawkins. It played at a much more pressured out pace. So I don't know what they're going to do. I'm looking forward to going to practice this summer and seeing it, but I don't know what's actually going to manifest from that if they continue on. And a lot of times it does come down to the roster, right? So if it's a bigger roster, you may go back to, you don't have Darius Johnson anymore. You won't have Jordan Ivy Curry anymore. There's a good chance it'll go back to that physical style of play, but we'll find out in a couple months. I'll find out in a couple months, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to hearing you report back on that. And of course, Mike O'Donnell, we always appreciate all the work you do for college basketball all season long with ESPN and CBS. And great job as always. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.